guys? Welcome back up here once again. This is the Club of the Man 1993, and I am here live for my AEW Full Gear 2019 live review. This show took place back on November 9th, 2019 at the Royal Farms Arena in Baltimore, Maryland. We had two really big matches hyped up for this show that I definitely think were the two sole reasons to watch this show, I will say. The rest of the card on this show I wouldn't say was bad, but to me it just was what it was, I felt, for the most part, for the undercard on this show. I feel it was that time where I think with this being the first pay-per-view for AEW since Dynamite had debuted on TNT, I think a lot of expectations were set pretty high for this show. I know mine were. And I think the two biggest matches that we were definitely most excited for on this show, the actual main event of the show, which was Jericho and Cody for the world title, but then of course the real main event, but it didn't count because it was a lights out, unsanctioned match, because it was unsanctioned because AEW did not want to be responsible at all for what Moxley and Omega were going to do to each other in that brutal, violent main event that we saw on this show. Those are two matches that definitely, were the sole reasons to watch this show. Everything else was what it was to good. I wouldn't say anything was horrible, but I think, again, we were still in a stage like, okay, we were seeing, people be developed on AEW. Now we actually want to see, kind of get out of this, development / exhibition stage, pretty much. And I think we still got a little bit of that on this show, which is why I feel like this show was still a good show, but I feel like it wasn't the strongest AEW pay-per-view we have seen so far. Still good, though. I definitely would still recommend it, especially those last two matches. But I feel like, the undercard on this show could have been a little bit better than it was. But without further ado, let's get rolling right into this review, including the pre-show and the unsanctioned match. We had 8 matches on this card. Let's get right rolling into it. Starting off with the pre-show match, the buy-in as they call it. It was Dr. Britt Baker, DMD, taking on Bea Priestley. These two have kind of been feuding with each other since the beginning of Dynamite and such. And of course, it's a good way to give, Britt Baker something to do, since she, even though she wasn't in the women's title picture, she was still, the first women's wrestler to sign with AEW. And of course, she's Adam Cole's wife and whatnot. Lucky son of a gun, as I keep saying. But obviously, just give her something to do. I did not see this match. She apparently won by submission, though, and defeated Bea Priestley. After the match, though, the lights did go out, and when the lights came back on, Awesome Kong and Mandy Rhodes. Brandy Rhodes came out to the ring, and then they obliterated Priestley and took a lock of her hair and cut it off at the instruction of Brandy Rhodes. This was around the time where it was the beginning of the Nightmare Collective, where people basically Brandy was kind of doing something similar to the Straight Edge Society, I felt, except with women. It didn't work out, though, and it was dropped, and since then Brandy Rhodes just became just a babyface supporting her husband, Cody, as need be. So that's all that happened on the buy-in. Again, I did not watch the buy-in, I did not see this match or any of this, but I think, for what I can read in the highlights, this was the beginning of the brief Nightmare Collective, for what I saw. So that was the opening match, the buy-in match. On the actual main show, the opening match, which was a good match, was the Young Bucks taking on Inner Circle's Pride and Powerful Santana and Ortiz. The match was good. I wouldn't say it was spectacular, but it was obviously because I feel like the Young Bucks, were basically that team. Like the saying goes with the Young Bucks and Kenny Omega. We came in knowing that these guys were the best. So obviously, why would we want to see them automatically be at the top and just push to the top into the moon and just kind of be like, have no reason to get invested in them. So obviously, at the beginning, at some point they are going to win the tag titles. They definitely are. I mean, they're involved in a great storyline right now with Omega and Hangman Adam Page currently. They had a early tag team and match of the year candidate at Revolution, which we'll talk about when we get to Revolution, which will be the next AEW pay-per-view we talk about. The only other we have left to talk about, actually, besides this one. So obviously, again, they're going to be putting some people over. I am also surprised they got eliminated in the first round of the tag team tournament. I thought they would go a little bit farther in, I thought. But obviously, this is not to put over Santana and Ortiz, formerly LAX and Impact Wrestling, and that's what they did. In a good match, again, it wasn't anything too spectacular, but it was just a good way to put over Santana and Ortiz, as of course there are, the tag team in the Inner Circle and one of Jericho's henchmen. So this was still good. Again, Santana and Ortiz won. Again, the right team won as should have happened. After the match, though, Sammy Guevara came down and continued to beat down on the Young Bucks before we get a surprise appearance of Ricky Morton and Robert Gibson emerge from the crowd, and they help the babyfaces fight off the Inner Circle, which I thought was pretty cool to see. Having that, and of course, again, it was just again, the Rock and Roll Express appearing was definitely a nice surprise as well. So I would say this was good. A good way to start off the main card. And again, it's a good way to put over Santana and Ortiz, as they definitely, to get the Inner Circle moving a little bit more, give, a little more wins to them, and definitely, rack them up. So a good way to start off the main card, I would say, for sure, for this show. The next match on the card was the long-awaited pay-per-view match between Hangman Adam Page and Pac. This match was solid. I wouldn't say it was great. Again, obviously, Hangman Adam Page, I think has benefited more and has kind of found his element a little bit more since teaming up with Kenny Omega and them becoming the AEW tag champions as they have in recent months. I still think at the beginning with him, getting that big push, being, the one to challenge Chris Jericho for the first ever AEW World title at All Out. It was just too soon. I felt like, people just didn't really quite know him yet either as well. And then, of course, Pac, Pac, we already know who he is. But this match was still good, but I still would say it wasn't as good as I thought it would be. I guess something seemed just a little bit off for some reason. I don't know if it's because, we've been waiting to see it. I mean, yes, there was another match on the show we were waiting to see for a long time, and it just capitalized big time. I think this one, we had seen it once or twice already, beforehand already. I guess, it was just kind of like a dragged out feud. Also, it kind of just made us hurt it a little bit. But, Paige would eventually win the match. And it was just time for these two to move on from one another, I felt. But still a good match, but again, not as... I wouldn't say it was anything as special as we were hoping it would be, for sure. Again, Adam Page was still kind of like, up on the rise. So green was wearing off on him in AEW, but again, I think he's gone into his element so much more since he's been teaming up with Kenny Omega recently. I think that's worked out for him. But so guys, about this match. The next match, probably the weakest match on the show, I would say. It was the chairman, Shawn Spears, formerly Ty Dillinger, of course, taking on the bad boy, Joey Janela. Decent match. I don't know. I mean, Shawn Spears, again, I think really hasn't been given too much of an opportunity. Too many opportunities really yet to really shine. Again, when I saw him at Fight for the Fallen, I think he was at... Yeah, Fight for the Fallen in that 6-man tag match. Even his match and the highlights I saw from All Out. I mean, again, like he really seemed like he was in an element for sure. with the persona he has, and he still does. He's just not really being given the right opportunities right now, I feel, to really shine. Joey Janela, although he does have like a hardcore gimmick to him, to me, Joey Janela is kind of like how the WWE, watered down Dean Ambrose to be towards the end of his career in WWE. A guy who was more meant for hardcore matches and could not really put on a good match without weapons. In like AEW and New Japan, though, obviously, besides this show, of course, they're doing their best to show that Moxley could still, put on good matches without weapons, good one-on-one matches. For Joey Janela, it doesn't feel like he can really, unless it's a hardcore match, he's not really standing out. And I think that's why this match felt a little bit on the weak side, in my opinion, but it still at least put over Shawn Spears as need be. I still think Spears could have benefited a little bit more from winning against Cody at All Out. I still think he should have won that match at All Out. But of course, it led to Cody, getting this great storyline here with Chris Jericho that led into, of course, another storyline from which we'll talk about when we get to the main event, which we're a couple matches away from doing so for sure. It is what it is, though. Shawn Spears is still around. He'll get his opportunity, though. It's taking a little bit longer to get there than I'd hoped for, but he'll get his shot. I mean, if there was like a mid card championship, but there isn't right now. But I think if there was a mid card title, I think Shawn Spears would be a great fit for that mid card title for AEW if that does ever come around. Let's see though. I think I saw Tyler say a few things in the live chat. Let me see here. He said this show blew Survivor Series out of the water. It did. Again, it wasn't really the strongest one I'd say, but it definitely was better than Survivor Series. That main event was brutal in a good way. Wait till we talk about that for sure. That's that for that. Next, we had a decent to solid triple threat match for the AEW World Tag Titles. It was the champions, SCUs, Frankie Kazarian and Scorpio Sky, taking on the Lucha Bros, Rey Fenix and Pentagon Jr., and Private Parties, Mark Quinn and Isaiah Cassidy. Just a solid tag match. I wouldn't say it was anything too spectacular. Again, the undercard in the show was all right. This show kind of felt like Money in the Bank 2016. A show that like the first half wasn't awful, but it just was what it was. The second half of the show, I thought, had like its moments and was like really good, like that good. Like if the first half was better, this would definitely be a very legendary show, I would say, but it didn't quite hit the that mark, I would say. But still a solid match. SCU would retain the tag titles. After the match, I think Christopher Daniels returned. He dressed up as one of the Lucha Bros and basically would just realign himself with SCU. So that's all I got to really say about that match. Moving on to the next match, which was our second women's match of the show, which was at the time the AEW Women's World Champion Rio taking on Emi Sakura. Emi Sakura. This is kind of like a teacher versus student match. I thought it was solid. Again, Rio was all right as women's champion. I wouldn't say she set the world on fire as women's champion, as I always say. And also, Baltimore's crowd, I remember this show, wasn't really that into this show, unfortunately. And I'm not sure why, which did kind of hurt us a little bit. But they were into this match and the following two matches after this, the two main event matches on the show. So the crowd enjoyed it. Again, you can tell watching this match that both Sakura and Rio knew each other pretty well, and had good counters. Again, just a typical teacher versus student match. Rio would retain the women's world title. Again, this ugly looking title I'm not a fan of. Again, she would eventually go on to drop it to Nyla Rose, who defended it against Chris Statlander at AEW Revolution. We'll talk about that match when we get to that show, but again, the women's division I still feel is still building. I mean, for AEW right now. I mean, I think it's starting to get somewhere. We're getting some more people established, but especially during this time, this women's division was still building up. I thought, but Rio retained, and there really isn't much really to say about this match either. But then we're getting ready for, well, even though this is the last match on the show that counted, so technically you can say this was the main event of the show, even though it was not. But the next match, one of the two matches that were like the biggest headlines of this show, two of the best matches of the year by far. Chris Jericho taking on Cody Rhodes for the AEW World Championship. Awesome match. It was brutal. Again, there was that one spot in the match where like you could tell because that Cody Rhodes, took I was great again. The empathy built on him for this. That nasty spot where he got tossed out of the ring and he landed on like the steel ramp. He had that big gash on his head that definitely just busted him wide open. But he continued to fight like a badass through this match. This was a brutal match. Well, not as brutal as the other match that happened on the show, which we'll get to that shortly. But it was still great. And of course, we had Jake Hager and MJF out in the corners. Even though MJF was supposed to be a heel, he was kind of a babyface for a little bit to be in support of his friend Cody Rhodes. But you knew that turn was coming at some point. And of course, Hager was just a silent bodyguard for Chris Jericho, which once again he buried the Real Americans gimmick. We the people on the live TV episode of Dynamite, which I just love it whenever they inadvertently, well, it's purpose, but you can tell it just rolls off their tongue of them burying the awful booking that happened in WWE that Jericho and Hager and even recently Brody Lee has done as well. But obviously, Cody Rhodes told that story of you're going to have to beat every last breath out of me for this. And again, what's made Cody such a great babyface is that he has really pushed himself. On the first match for Dynamite ever, he took on Sammy Guevara. And he said if he can't beat Sammy Guevara, he does not deserve this world title opportunity he's getting at Full Gear, because it was already advertised. And then once that happened, obviously he felt he had a lot to prove. And obviously Jericho's attacked his family and whatnot. The legacy of his father, Dusty Rhodes, as well, was brought up a lot in the build for this feud. So, obviously Chris Jericho put it all on the line, saying that I'm going to push myself here because I want to be the best. If I cannot beat Chris Jericho for the AEW World Title, then I will never challenge for the World Title ever again. And again, the match was told, Jericho, hitting Cody with everything, but Cody was just trying to show he had like those 9 lives and whatnot. Even with that nasty gash and the blood coming from it from that spot, Cody fought like a big hero. And there was a point in the match also where Jake Hager got ejected from the match. And, oh, shoot, I'm sorry, I bumped the wrong button. I was trying to bump it down there, and I accidentally bumped those buttons. But again, everything was just leading to 2 counts for Jericho and Cody. Jericho even removed his own belt and whooped Cody with it. The referee wrestled the belt away and tossed to the floor. Again, Hager was eliminated. Jericho put the Lion Tamer on Cody. MJF is screaming from ringside for Cody. But then the finish came when MJF threw in the towel because he did not feel that Cody Rhodes was able to survive, as he would probably say this. He says he was looking out for his friend, and he thought that Cody had taken enough beating already from it. But Cody Rhodes did not want that to happen. He did not want to quit. The crowd was pissed. They booed the heck out of MJF, giving him the nuclear heel he needed. Which, of course, I kept saying, we knew from the get-go. Even before he kind of temporarily became a babyface to stand side by side with his friend Cody Rhodes, you knew the turn was coming. That MJF was going to, just ride Cody's coattail and then eventually find the right opportunity just to step right over top of him and to be able to get himself and solidify himself as the top heel. Because after the match, with the Inner Circle celebrating, MJF got in the ring, told Cody he's sorry, picked him up and hugged him, but would proceed to kick him in the balls and just break Cody's heart even more. He just lost a match where he said if he didn't win it, he would not challenge for the world title again. Even though he didn't lose the match, MJF threw in a towel for him to stop the match, and he just, all he wanted to do was just stop Cody Rhodes from having his moment, and he just wants to make Cody Rhodes' life miserable and show him who really is the best around here. Just a way for MJF to get great again. MJF, he's just another Miz or Robert Roode, except taken to a much higher level right now because they're literally capitalizing on all of his momentum. He's winning matches. He's pulling off heel heat tactics. What I got time was it there? He won the diamond ring off of against and it came out of him and Hangman Adam Page for that. Yes, it's a simple little object, but to me, it's just something very simple that's just helping him be built up as one of the best heels in the whole entire wrestling industry, not just in AEW, but in the whole industry for sure. Again, the guy himself said he would never go to WWE because he does not want a script handed him at all whatsoever, and MJF does not need one single script at all. But his turn was bound to happen, and it came, and it was off to the races as the build for Cody Rhodes and MJF at Revolution was awesome. And we'll talk about that, of course, when we get to our Revolution review. Alright, guys, you ready for me to talk about this? You ready for me to talk about this brutal match that did not count because it was unsanctioned, and it was made clear to the storyline? There we go. Now the arrows weren't working. Now I can click it. That's this match. The main event, even though this match was considered after the show because it was a lights out unsanctioned match. The match we were supposed to get, well, I don't know if it was going to be unsanctioned or not, but the one-on-one match we were supposed to get at All Out. Jon Moxley, in just his second pay-per-view match, because his first one was at Fyter Fest when he took on Joey Janela in an unsanctioned match. Jon Moxley taking on one of the two men he targeted when he first made his surprise debut at Double or Nothing. He targeted Chris Jericho, and the main he targeted to make a big name for himself was Kenny Omega. Again, this match was supposed to happen at All Out, but because of it, I think it was like an arm injury or an elbow injury, one of the two things. It was a minor injury that kept Moxley out of that match. So instead they had Pac and Kenny Omega. Oh boy. Remember back in 2016, whenever Brock Lesnar and Dean Ambrose had an excellent build to their matches for it to be a huge disappointment and a huge letdown? This was the type of match I wanted to see. This was CZW hardcore ripping the shreds brutality. This whole idea of these two were going to do so many things to them that the company did not want to be responsible for it. Man, were they right. There was a bunch of weapons used in this match, and it was used excellently. We had a barbed wire baseball bat that was thrown across the back, raked out the eyes of Moxley from Omega, and we had a couple other pieces of barbed wire as well. What else did we have here in this match? We gotta read off all these weapons to do that. Again, Moxley got dug in the face with the barbed wire bat from Omega. We had trash cans being used in the match very well as well. There was chains used in the match. More trash cans, more lids. Typical, stuff. There was a spot in the match also wherever Omega brought in a black bag. and it reminded me of whenever they had the thumbtack bump in the Asylum match with Jericho and Ambrose at now Moxley at Extreme Rules 2016. When they brought him, thinking, oh, we're going to get some thumbtacks here. It's going to be brutal. Nope, we got something different. I'm not sure if this is worse or not. We had to pour out glass. And there was, they were slamming each other into the glass. They took the glass, used it as a weapon in general, just to cut. And it was, oh man, it was definitely brutal, physical, that part as well. Omega actually shoved glass into Moxley's mouth and also took an ice pick and like a little ice pick that you use to pick ice. At some point, they randomly put it into one of the turnbuckles. I'm not sure why. But Omega actually used it and dug it onto Moxley's forehead. It looked brutal. It looked sick. And then, of course, they continued to fight out onto the ramp as well. And then, when they get out on the ramp, out come the Young Bucks and Hangman Adam Page. Because obviously, the story being told here was that Moxley was sending Omega to a place where he has not really gone for it in who knows when. So the Hangman and the Bucks came out, and they were kind of trying to first talk some sense into Omega, but then Omega was like, "Bring it out, guys, bring it out." We also saw, at this point, I forgot to mention before we got there, Omega even brought out a thing of mouse traps, and even slam did like a suplex onto Moxley through the mouse traps as well. There was tables used in there. I think there were some chairs. I remember, but when they're out on the ramp, they brought out some type of barbed wire spider web bed. It was huge. Moxley delivered a suplex that sent the both of them into that. It looked like something falling into a ring of fire. You were not gonna come out of that. It was worse than the thumbtack. Again, when Jericho and Moxley were talking about their match at Extreme Rules, how Jericho had to take the bump because originally in that match, Ambrose was going to take the bump in the thumbtacks. But then when they realized that Ambrose was going to be going over, it's you can't take the bump on the thumbtacks and win because that's like being thrown to the ring of fire and whatnot. You don't come back from that. So that's when Jericho was just I gotta take the bump in the thumbtacks instead. Both of them go through the barbed wire, that barbed wire bed it looked like. I was just how are you coming back from this? How are you guys surviving? But that still was not it for the nasty bumps taken in this match. Because after the ring crew got them out of there, they continued to fight despite being all beat up and such. And then they came out, and then Moxley was up, and Omega was up as well, sent him through a spotlight back on the stage. It looked very, very similar to Extreme Rules. It was not Extreme Rules Backlash in 2009 when Big Show interrupted the last man standing match between Cena and Edge and slammed Cena to that spotlight. It looked almost like the exact same thing as these two went through that spotlight, and it was nasty as well. So they crashed through there, and eventually they got back to the ring afterwards. Moxley hit a paradigm shift for a 2 count. He proceeded to pull the ring apart and expose the wood under the canvas. He went for a package pile driver. Omega countered into a back body drop, and then Omega himself delivered his own paradigm shift for a 2 count. But that was not enough either. Omega went for a Phoenix Splash, but Moxley avoided and he crashed and burned, and he hit a 3rd paradigm shift on Omega into the exposed wood to win this, not this match, this war. Again, if you were waiting for a TV 14 hardcore CZW John Moxley match to be shown on live TV. This was it right here. This was brutal. This was a war. Some people even said they went too far with this. I disagree. Yes, they went to a whole nother level. These two guys threw, hardcore moments on the line, just with the barbed wire, with the glass, with the ice pick, the mouse traps, the variety of weapons. This is stuff we want to see. This was Attitude Era level material. And we already knew Omega was a superstar. We all know that Moxley was a superstar, but he had something to prove. And I think this match, of course, eventually, of course, it has to be, okay, Moxley has to be able to, show he can do things without just weapons involved in the match as well. But this just showed just how dangerous of a man John Moxley for sure can be. And even though, of course, this match did not count because it was unsanctioned, it put him over pretty darn good, I gotta say. It was brutal, it was a war, and it was a classic. It's hard to watch. I know wrestling has toned down the demographics somewhat, but again, AEW is TV 14. This is not a match meant for kids to watch. I definitely would not recommend showing your kid this match unless they can handle scary stuff and violence and barbed wire and blood and everything. This was brutal. This was brutal, but it was an awesome, brutal match, I gotta say for sure. And it just skyrocketed John Moxley, even though, again, it did not count. And, of course, I do like that promo in the video package where you see Moxley being called into Tony Khan's office. You don't see them talk, but you hear them from the outside arguing because he was told that their match was going to be non-sanctioned and that it didn't count. And then Moxley was just angry because, until he won the title at Revolution, neither of Moxley's pay-per-view matches counted because they were both unsanctioned matches. The one with Joey Janela he had was kind of like, just like a match that just kind of introduced Moxley. This was meant to make Moxley look like $1 million in this match, and it worked for sure. And my goodness, yes, he did deserve to go on. And the plan always was for him to become the second AEW World Champion. He just needed to get that big stardom moment, and this is what it was right here with this match at Full Gear. And it was awesome. And I loved every second of it. Definitely a match I'd recommend checking out if you can handle the violence for sure. And with that, guys, that's going to do it for my AEW Full Gear live review. Again, I thought the last two matches, especially Jericho and Cody, and then Moxley and Omega, were definitely the two reasons why you should watch this show. The rest of the show was decent. I wouldn't say it lit the world on fire to me. Yeah, it put people over, but I wouldn't say it was like, the biggest, moment makers, I would say, in my opinion. But still a great match. I mean, great show. Good show, I give it a B. I give Full Gear a B. Check the live chat before we go off the air. I have one more review I'm going to do tonight, which is going to be from the NXT TakeOver War Games 3. I got the graphics ready for that, and then, of course, that'll be it for reviews for tonight, but definitely get 4 reviews done today. That's got a good chunk knocked out. I would like to get all these reviews caught up by WrestleMania, for sure. That way I can do the WrestleMania review after, the second night happens. But let's see here. Let me see here. Let me see where we were at here with Tyler's live chats. Oh, yeah. He saw the first episode of AEW Dynamite. He loved the hardcore wars, then brand warfare. If Ray was drafted to SmackDown, then Brock don't left for Raw. Not sure what he means by that. John was going for the world title to win at Revolution for sure. Survivor Series was the same old band warfare, and if we have Raw and SmackDown, we have the wrestlers create freedom for themselves. We did not. This is more like ECW hardcore anarchy. Is Tom and Jerry and have those mouse traps? Well, hey, don't diss on Tom and Jerry. Tom and Jerry were my boys when I was like 8 years old. They were always, and still probably will be, my favorite cartoon of all time for sure. But yeah, there were mouse traps done in this match. There was a cutscene WWE 12 where Sheamus threw Wade Barrett to a spotlight. Oh, he did? I did not know he did that either. But thank you for sharing that as well. But yep, again, good show. The undercard wasn't as strong though I felt, but still was decent. But again, the two big headline matches definitely capitalized for sure, which is why I'm just giving this show a B. B for AEW Full Gear. Guys, again, I'll be back up here in just a few minutes to review NXT TakeOver War Games 3. And then again, we'll have just one more pay-per-view left from 2019 review, which will be TLC, which maybe I'll do it tomorrow. Who knows? I do have a big project I got to export overnight and see what I can do about that. But we'll see what happens, guys. But again, I'll be back here live in a few more minutes. AEW Full Gear gets a B for me. What are your thoughts on Full Gear, guys? Make sure to leave your thoughts down in the comments section below. Also, again, especially your biggest question is, what were your thoughts on the Moxley and Omega match? Did you think it went too far? Was it too brutal for you, or did you love the brutality? Make sure to leave your thoughts down in the comment section below. Again, slap a like on the video, subscribe, more content on my channel, follow me on Twitter at DemandAir93, and guys, again, I'll be back here in a few more minutes to do one more live review tonight, which will be NXT TakeOver War Games 3, and that's going to be a good show to talk about for sure. Well, the War Games matches were great. Stuff in the middle, not too bad, but I still think the War Games matches were definitely the strongest part of that show. But we'll talk about that when we get there. So until guys, I am out. Have a great rest of your night. I will see you guys in a few minutes if you're going to join me live for one more review, and it'll be another good one. So until guys, I am out. Peace out, everybody.